Hello, I'm Michael Tubbs of the Community Action Partnership of North Alabama. I'm glad you're sitting in today on ROMA Module 1, the history, purpose, and perspective of community action. And as we go through this presentation, as brief and as fast as it's going to be, I think you'll see this timeline is very helpful for us to understand the historical milestones since 1964 of how community action really became what it is today. And as we look forward, that history will help us understand the perspective of the many things that have happened during these years. The other thing we'll hear, and you'll hear these words very often, that is about results for family, agency, and community. It's very important to understand that has always been the purpose behind community action, and I believe it's going to be the purpose going forward. So let's start at the beginning. Back in 1964, the country was at a very different place, and most of us know that, but the history is that really community action was founded back in 1964, and it really came out of the Economic Opportunity Act of 1964. Two big pieces of legislation went through Congress back when Congress actually governed, and that was the Civil Rights Act and also the Economic Opportunity Act. And that really is our founding. Community action agencies began to emerge after that. But in 1964, Lyndon Johnson, our president at that time, really felt like the federal government needed to step in and do something about chronic and really abject poverty in locations all across the country. Alabama was one of those, and we're glad to see those foundational times being founded. You know, back to the earlier times in this country, there was a lot of issues, many issues going on in the country, but poverty was one of those things that became a target. And really as a result of that, you began to see the federal government creating structure around how is it that we alleviate the issues of chronic poverty. So the Economic Opportunity Act, for the first time ever, really gave the opportunity for states, counties, local governments, and other entities to form up really local agencies, nonprofits like ours and like yours, to be able to go in and do something about poverty. You know, as community action agencies began to form up, we find our way into 1970, and really there needed to be some definition around how is it that community action agencies need to address the issues in their local community. And so what happened is you began to see definition around the three issues: family, agency, and community. And a memo came out from the federal government at that time, and actually Donald Rumsfeld was the author of this. It goes way back to that time. He and Dick Cheney were very involved in the issues of how is it that the government addresses the issues of poverty, the Nixon administration, and they began to define and firm up around the community action agencies what you ought to be doing. And many community action agencies have sort of just gone off on their own, and this became the first time that you begin to see structure around what community action ought to do. Again, developing issues that address the issues in the community, developing solutions in the community, developing solutions for families, and then also improving the function of an agency so that it can perform at a very high level. So by 1974, we're still in the Nixon administration, but some very important things began to happen. The Economic Opportunity Act actually was abolished. And from that, you see the Community Services Act. And the Community Services Act kept moving forward with community action agencies, but it really did begin to change the way that model worked. And really what the Nixon administration was doing was beginning to push the responsibility for community action and its efforts down to the state level. So 1974 rocks along, we're reauthorized, but by 1981, a very significant shift begins to happen, and that is that the community service block grant emerged as a way to move money from the federal government to the state. And what happened is, you can imagine, the needs in Alabama were a little different than they were in Rhode Island or in Montana. So states became involved as not only a monitoring tool, but also the oversight of and the distribution of the block grant dollars so that community action could address local needs. Still keeping with the theme that family, agency, and community were where we look for results. You know, the next significant milestone is we find ourselves in 1993, and that's in the Clinton-Gore administration. And I think President Clinton was very wise in asking Al Gore to lead, as vice president, a very significant investment in time and effort to really what amounted to was the more efficient use of government dollars. So what emerged as Vice President Gore led it was the Government Performance and Result Act. And really the acronym GPRA, if you can remember that, addressed the issues of efficiency and effectiveness for community action agencies, and primarily what kind of results are we getting for the money that we're spending. In 1994, the Measurement and Assessment Task Force emerged. And what this did is it began to codify really the 6 national goals of community action. For the first time, we see community action looking at very distinct ways to measure results around family, agency, and community. And there were 2 different goals for each one of those. The Measurement and Assessment Task Force really became the guidelines, but if you look back, it goes all the way back to the 1970 document that Donald Rumsfeld created that first and foremost identify community action with a purpose and a mission, and of course we look back at that history and understand it's still alive today as we address the issues of family, agency, and community. So, what was the takeaway from 1994? For the first time, we see the word ROMA emerge, and that is results-oriented management accountability. And what happened is the Office of Community Service began to look for states and local entities like ours to produce those 6 results in a reporting format around those 6 national goals. So ROMA, results-oriented management accountability, became the standard that all 1,100 community action agencies would be looked at and measured by. So ROMA has emerged in 1994, and by 1996, the Office of Community Service began to look at agencies and again kind of tighten up what is it that we expect. And training began to emerge, and also something that we'll now refer to as a logic model, and you'll see the logic model later on in the presentation today. But it became a way for us to look at not just the units, the things that we counted that we did, quantitative measures of a community action agency, but really how do you blend and how do you marry community action management and accountability? In other words, it's the whole agency perspective of what is it we do in the community as it addresses the needs of community and also families and individuals. So here we are in 1998 on the timeline. And 1998 was the reauthorization of the Community Service Block Grant Act. Actually, it's the last time that Community Service Block Grant is being reauthorized, even though there's a bill pending right now. So what it did is it mandated for the first time that a performance-based management system be implemented for all community action agencies. So that's been with us now since 1998. This is not anything that's new. So there is an expectation from the funder, the federal government, the state monitor, that we look at family, agency, and community outcomes and results that we achieve, not just the units that we count. Back in 2001, an information memorandum, we'll acronym IM49, came out. IM49 really began to look at not just the ROMA goals and how community action agencies function, but really began to look at the whole community action agency. And you know, the tendency in the community action agency is look at program outcomes. And we all understand that. So Head Start outcomes or weatherization outcomes or CSBG type outcomes. But what ROMA has done and what the IM49 did is begin to look at the agency this way, not just down in those silos. And I think it's a healthy thing for us to not look at programmatic outcomes, but look at agency outcomes as a whole, and also look at the change that was created for communities, not just that we worked in a community, but what happened because of the work that we did, and also with individuals or families, what's the result of the work in the programs that were administered there. So it's not just a matter of we provide job training, it's that we create opportunities for people to go to work because they had job training. So there's a result there, not just an activity. And we really begin to see that language emerge in the way we're measured in the expectation of reporting, not only the community action agencies, but the states, because the states now have a responsibility to look at community action agencies and say, how are we doing as a state, and how is the money being spent, what results are we achieving? Even though we're looking at agencies as a whole, we also know that there's pure performance being done at the local level. That performance became just, really you can imagine, with 1,100 community action agencies, hundreds or maybe even thousands of results in local communities. So what happened is a group came together around what we now call the National Performance Indicators. And really mandatory reporting came from the state to look at how is it that in Alabama 21 community action agencies achieve results. Well, it's very different from certain parts of Alabama where there might be an urban issue in rural Alabama. So those national performance indicators began to embrace or aggregate primarily what are the major results that are being achieved across the state of Alabama or in a local community action agency. So national performance indicators became a way of talking about not ROMA and the 6 goals, but all the things that those 6 goals might embrace. So here we are on the timeline in 2006. In 2006, something that's very useful, even today, for all community action agencies came. And look, this is a tool that's useful for any business or any entity because it's a cycle of how do you get better as a community action agency or even a business. So the ROMA cycle began to emerge and helped us understand that it's a never-ending process, really. How do we get better at what we do? And if we're using federal tax dollars to achieve results, I think everyone should want to be a good steward of that, and certainly see our agencies increase over time in our effectiveness and in our efficiency of using those dollars. So the ROMA Cycle is a good tool. It's a good tool for managers today to be able to look at how can we manage the money that we have and achieve the highest level of results and be accountable for that. So 2009. The Obama administration came in with a renewed focus on results. And look, we're all glad for that. And it's not a hardship for community action agents to say, look, we make a difference in the community and we make a difference for families. So that new emphasis on reporting began to be looked at a lot closer. And the expectations, I think, of community action agencies did go up, and for states it went up, and that is on the reporting side. Show us. Help us understand what you're doing. And in the 2009 thing segued into 2011, where you see a whole lot more emphasis on show me the results. And agencies have been held to a little higher standard because of that. So 2011, though, sets up what I think is the next generation, and that is ROMA Next Gen. 2009, the Obama administration came in with a very renewed focus on getting results with federal dollars, and look, we're all for that. And what happened as a result of that is a new performance planning, performance results model that came out. In 2011, it moved into a new IM, an Information Memorandum 123. And that 123 really began to look at, it's a very forward look for community action agencies, not just reporting, but show us those results. So again, all the way back to that 1964 model, all the way back to 1970, you see family, agency, community, and results being that focus. I think it's healthy for community action agents to say, we receive federal money, we produce results for families and communities. So here we are in 2017. By this time, a new Information Memorandum 152 has been released. Not only that, it's been approved by the Office of Community Service, and really we are in ROMA Next Gen. Next generation of ROMA has emerged. So what's got us to where we are today is about a year ago, 58 new standards, at least 58 for most states, emerged as a way to look at community action agencies across a wide spectrum of the pure functions of a community action agency. Again, not just results for family and community, but how is the agency, how is it governed? What's our human resource function? It looked at so many different factors, and those have been good things for community action agencies. So all of us are now complying with those at least 58 standards. But what's happened since then is a whole new focus, not just on activities that produce results. And we've been good at that for many years. But, you know, poverty is a very complex process. Looking at the issues of poverty in a family or with a whole community takes sometimes more than just one service delivers one result. Sometimes it takes years to move people out of poverty. Sometimes it takes years to see a community change and be able to produce results in a different way. So I think this renewed focus in this ROMA Next Gen model gives us an understanding that the taxpayer dollars can get results, but we have to be able to tell our story in a different way and tell it, I think, in a much better way. And ROMA Next Gen does that. You know, we're always looking at agencies being effective and efficient, but the primary focus is going to be, what did you do in the community? How did you make an impact? What did you do to lift that whole community up so that the issues of poverty can be alleviated or even removed completely? So here we are at a new time. ROMA Next Gen is our friend. It's not our enemy. And IM 152 gives us additional guidance. I think it also proves to funders at every level that community action is here to stay. Community action makes a difference. I think it's a good process for us. I think community action with ROMA as a foundation, our history, our purpose, and our perspective really gives us guidance that helps us into the future to be able to prove to people community action is here to stay, and we make a difference.